Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing out there today? Don't forget, put where you're from right down there. Where are you from? Country, city, state, planet, galaxy. We could go into all kinds of whatever. Just put it all on there. We'll see what happens. Now, it's good to see everybody. Don't forget, we're tinkerwithtech.net. Today, awesome show. I can tell you right now it's going to be, just because I love having Peggy on as a guest. But before that, I'm going to bring on one of our super mega ultimate righteous fans, which we call Smurfs, Jalin, because I asked her to come in and see if she wanted to be a co-host, and she said yes. So Jalin, how are you?
I am doing well today, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Good. Had fun last night learning about this stuff too. So I'm looking forward to what Peggy has to add to what we've already learned. So
there you go. There you go. So without further ado, Miss Peggy K. Hey, Peggy K, how are you?
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here.
And yes, and great to have you. How are you?
Doing all right. Sort of in the midweek slump a little bit, but other than that, pretty good.
Exactly. Looks like we got about 4 people watching. We got Ron out there. I see Andy's out there. Real quick, I see Mike just joined us. Good. And Jalin, I'll let you take over from this point, but I just wanted to.
All righty. Yep.
But yeah, if there's any comment that's relative to what we're talking about or something,
I'll pop it up.
Yeah, exactly. But today we're going to talk about something. I know you're a product expert in a lot of stuff, but you're a product along with me in Google Meet. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Google Meet. So what is it, first of all?
Well, I think we have to go back in time. As I'm sure people watching know, Google's main video and chat platform was Hangouts. That was launched fully in 2013. But like all things, Google moved on. They really wanted to focus on business customers. So they launched 2 separate platforms. There's Google Chat, which is for chatting. That's the text-based, and Google Meet, which is for videos. This was completely aimed at enterprise customers, not regular folks so much. Hangouts kept kind of ticking along, and not many updates or anything. Yeah. So the whole focus of Meet is started out at least with video meetings. It really took off in 2020 for the obvious reasons. I think that really was kind of a bit of a kick in the pants to Google to really start focusing on developing more features as more and more people were using meetings, especially for education, but also for business. So those are meetings. They also in 2020 finally opened it up to personal accounts. So everyone has access to it. If you have a Google account, there are premium features, though, that are limited to specific Google Workspace or other paid subscriptions. So
we're probably going to touch and talk about some of that today, probably some of those extra features that So
and then just to round things out there, so then at the same time, the consumer level video calling was Duo. That was mobile first. Had some fun features. Last year, they decided to combine together Duo and calling and Meet meetings. So now they are all Google Meet. So now when you say Google Meet, it means both the Duo kind of calling. It also means meetings, which is confusing. But
it is extremely confusing. But I think, I sort of can understand too with them. I mean, Google did some downsizing, so I'm sure that some of that ties into, hey, let's not have 2 full sets of engineers. Let's just get one, work on one thing, bring a lot of stuff together. I think that's a lot.
Yeah.
The reason why. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying I like it. But
I mean, it kind of, in a way, if you look back, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense for Google to have 2 entirely separate teams, both working on video calling calling.
Yeah.
The only trouble is now kind of trying to integrate the two when they have completely different kinds of purposes.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, but they could. I mean, that's just what Google does, though. And I think a lot of how they could really solve that is just kept the Duo name, but keep it within Meet. Like you access it with one button, Meet, but then have one as a call, one as a Meet. Have it as two tab. That just makes so much more sense. But whatever.
Although Duo was kind of an outdated name, right? Because you can have group calls on Duo. So
true. Yeah, that's true. I know.
So I wanted to sort of come back around full circle, though. You know, Hangouts was shut down finally last November, I think it was. And it lingered on a long time, but in a way it was good because it meant chat and Meet were more ready for people to move over. But I wanted to mention that there is some integration between Google Chat and meetings. You can call, you can make a call from inside Google Chat. So let's say you're in a Google Chat group and you can say call, that will ring all the people in the group, and all those people in the group can then join directly. Mm-hmm. But it's not really a call, it's a meeting. So, you know, the terminology is confusing. They try and say calling is Duo, except when you call from Google Chat, and that's a meeting.
I know. Trust me, we did it. As a matter of fact, that was part of our testing last night. Part of our Smurf group, I'm doing a full set of video on just Google Chat. It's going to be like a 30 video series on every single part of Google Chat to explain it.
Oh, wow.
So I got all the footage. I mean, we got all the testing and footage. And so we actually did what you just talked about, and that will be part of it. But why do they call it whatever they call it sometimes? Who knows, right, Peggy? I mean.
So, I mean, I'm hoping that there will be, over time, it will kind of get clearer and things will get better integrated. But this is a transition period still, so it's confusing.
Yes, thanks for giving us that info on Google Meet and what it is and everything else. Just because something can be merged doesn't mean it should be merged. Yeah, valid point. I get what you're saying there too. What are some of the new features? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the new things that's going on with Google Meet, because I know they got all the little funny faces and stuff that you can do and stuff and different things you can do.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that they took on sort of from Duo is you can have backgrounds, custom backgrounds. If you're using your mobile device, they actually have like 360-degree backgrounds. So if you're on your mobile device and you choose one of these backgrounds and you move around, it actually, moves behind you as if you're actually in the background, which is kind of cool. It also includes augmented reality filters. So, the newest one that they just launched is like this cute dragon. So instead of you on the screen, it's this cute dragon on the screen, kind of mirroring your movements. So it's fun stuff that they're integrating into meetings. A lot of these were in Duo calling already. So I think that's great. So that's the fun side. Yeah. I think the thing to remember is that Meet is really business customer first and also education first, because that's doing it. So there's a lot of features like there's integrations with Google Calendar. These are only available if you have Google Workspace, where you can see, for example, you make an event on Google Calendar, you add a video meeting with that, and then you're inside the meeting and you can see the list of people who were invited to the calendar event, see if they've joined or not. Really probably very useful if you're using it for your business. There's also things like managing your Google Slides presentation from inside the meeting, so you don't have to kind of fiddle with changing the slides separately from talking to the people who are in the meeting. And the cool thing that I'm using is live streaming to YouTube. That is, again, a premium paid feature. If you have a personal Google account, you can get access to some of these features by either having a Google One with at least 2 terabytes of data, or a Google Workspace Individual. And those 2 different kinds of subscriptions have different feature sets. But live streaming to YouTube is included in both of those. Although I should say, with the Google One subscription, it's only certain countries. There's a whole long list of countries, but it's not every country in the world. There was a question the other day, for example, someone said, why don't I have these features? I have
That's a good
Google One account, and it's like, I think they were from Poland, and it's like, it's not launched in Poland yet. So if that's important to you, be sure to check the list of countries where these features are available.
Peggy, is it something that they are developing for other countries as well? It's just the timing they haven't gotten to it yet, or are there reasons why another country would be disallowed?
All I know is that over time, it initially launched with like 5 countries, and they've been expanding it over time.
And it sounds like they will continue.
I don't know why it's not every country everywhere all at once.
I think a lot of times one thing they like to do, especially since they got sued by all of Europe, they like to make sure all the legal ramifications for each country has the same thing. I think their legal department gets involved before they go. They know what they can do in the U.S. or Canada or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They know what they can do in those particular countries. So I think a lot of times when that happens, I think they're just making sure they're ducked in a row so they don't get sued.
Yeah, and Europe is complicated because there are European rules, everyone in the European Union, and then individual countries have specific policies as well. It sounds extremely complicated. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that may be the reason why. Hi to everyone in the chat. Hi, Nina, who I hang out with
Excellent.
on the weekends, and we do a live stream as on eBoard every other week from Google Meet as well on the on eBoard channel.
Welcome, Nina.
Yeah,
awesome.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it.
And then Andrew added this.
It's true. Very true. They do have a tough time with English, don't they?
There we go.
Just imagine it getting translated then, Andrew. That's even worse.
Although Google Translate does a good job, I must say.
Yeah, so there's definitely things in Google Meet that they keep adding. And one thing is to understand, too, there's no download, correct? It's just browser-based. That's it.
It is. That is one of the features. I think in a bigger picture, Google overall has moved away from creating standalone apps for any of its products and services, which means that it's entirely browser-based. I mean, for PCs, they do have mobile apps, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that's a real benefit where you don't need to install anything except a recent browser version.
Now, can someone join you who doesn't have an account, a Google account in a Meet?
That's a great question. That is a premium feature, and it depends on what kind of account you have. Okay. They call that anonymous joining, and that is included with Google Workspace Individual, which I have. So that's an add-on to your personal Google account. If you have Google Workspace Individual, people can join anonymously, and people can dial in. Dialing in is also a premium feature. So if you think you're going to have meetings, with people with all different kinds of accounts, maybe don't have a computer, or maybe just want to call, having one of the premium subscriptions is probably
not a bad idea. Yeah, not a bad idea to go ahead and have that, because exactly. That's good to know too as well, because I know that gets asked quite often, so I wanted to make sure and bring that up.
Yeah. Also, Nina had another comment about the issue of Europe and why things, she says, Europe has the Google headquarters, no legal issues here for any launch. And she thinks it may more be logistics, which makes sense.
Of course.
Mhm.
100%. Yep, 100%. No, I think all of that, they have to weigh into that and everything else and make sure that all their.
So one thing I wanted to mention
yes, please.
is that if you're using a Google Workspace account, Google Workspace for your work, Google Workspace for school, your Google Workspace administrator has a bunch of controls for enabling who has access to various features. And I wanted to mention especially school accounts for students are pretty locked down, and a lot of features are disabled, mostly to prevent disruption.
Yeah.
So I get questions a lot, for example, why can't I add a custom background? It's like, well, it may be turned off for your account if you're using your school account. And we also have defaults for education accounts that are more security minded. So for example, I think anonymous joining is turned off by default for those accounts.
Makes
So
sense.
just so you know, it gets really confusing for people because they're using an account, maybe their personal account, and they have a school account, and it's complicated because the features don't necessarily match that they have access to.
Or they saw this and they say, hey, I want to be able to do this and I can't do that kind of thing. So yeah, it's very common because in between each one. Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, that's nice of you. One thing that the last one I'm going to touch on this before I ask you the last question is, and we get this, I mean, this happens all the time. I'm wondering can you do a permanent link? If I'm an individual account user, can I make a permanent link that can be reused and put in, I don't know, my calendar or something like that, where we could access every time? Is that something that I can do?
If you make a calendar event and add Meet conferencing to that calendar event, I think the link is good for 365 days since it was last used. So basically, if you're continuously using it, every time you use it, it's good for a year.
So that's tied to an event, though, like a recurring event is what that would be tied to.
Just a recurring event, yeah. So you can go into Google Calendar, set up your event, and say you want it to repeat every month, every week. You know, there's Google Calendar has a whole bunch of different scheduling options. Right. You can have it repeat and then use the same meeting link for every iteration of the event.
So that's the only way to really do that, though, is with the calendar. Like, I can't give you a Meet link and then
I think it's all spelled out in the Meet Help Center how long. Most meeting links are good for 1 year since they were used last. So if you create what they call an ad hoc meeting, you just go to Google Meet and say, create a meeting that generates a link. I'm pretty sure that's good for a year since it was last used.
Excellent. Awesome. Last one. Why use Google Meet? Why even use it? Because there's Zoom, there's Teams, there's all this other stuff and everything, but why Google Meet? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't use all those other products. All I'm saying is, what's a good use, or why would you say Google?
For me, I think the number one reason is I already have a Google account. It's integrated in my Google account. I don't need to set up anything else. And I think in terms of security, I think Google actually has pretty solid security, account security, is thinking about security issues. I've talked to some people, for example, who are hesitant in using Zoom. They're not sure Zoom is like doing good things with their data or whatever. But really, having a Google account is the first thing. And I think for the kinds of things that I use personally, the features are solid. And if you have a Google Workspace individual account, the annual cost of that is less than a Zoom, whatever the lowest tier Zoom account is.
Okay.
So if it has all the features that you need, I think it's definitely worth using. Now, Zoom I think has more emphasis towards things like webinars and those kind of features, which Meet does not have. I mean, Meet is really, think of it as something added on to your work account kind of thing, where you wouldn't necessarily, most people wouldn't be hosting a webinar from their work account kind of thing. So, it's not ideal for a lot of those kind of webinar features. And so you have to look at what's available and what the cost is. And
I will say that Zoom is very feature rich, but it also is a downloaded product, et cetera, et cetera. Because on their web version of Zoom, it's limited in a lot of the things, kind of like what you were just going into too. So
yeah, I use Zoom on the web. I'm using a Chromebook, and I don't usually install apps on it. So I use Zoom on the web, and yes, it is missing a lot of features that I would otherwise have.
The Zoom PWA for Chromebook is pretty cool. I mean, it really does work well.
Yeah,
there is. Which is much improved over just the regular web version. But in terms of a lot of the things for hosting Zoom meetings and webinars, those features aren't available.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for joining. Jalen, thank you for helping out. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody that was watching, and anybody that's watching later. Be sure to add comments in the comments down below of this video, and I will make sure and get back to Peggy K if there's a question that you have individually for her.
For sure.
As usual, we do our backstage pass now, so we're going to go ahead and end this, and when we end this, and Peggy, I'll get you the link to it. So
thank you. Thank you for having me.
I can put it in. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next time, and we are out. Later on. Take care. Bye all.